Now we're ready. I'd like to call to order the March 1, 2022 meeting of the McCandless Planning Commission. The first item on the agenda is the Ridge Preliminary Subdivision Land Development Application, formerly known as the Marwell property. I think the first order of business is a motion to accept the application for review. So could I have from one of our members a motion to accept this application for review? That will kick it off.
That's a move. Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? It passed.
Excuse me, Dan.
Yes.
I'm getting a whole lot of feedback when you talk. Would it be possible to back up from your mic just a little bit? When you talk, it's really just a lot of vibration here.
Okay, is this any better?
Much better, thank you.
Okay.
Sorry, Kim, it's those new mics. We're still getting used to them.
It's no problem. It's just he's going to sound bad on the recording. That's all.
Oh, no. Now that we've got that preliminary work through, now the next item on the agenda is the initial presentation discussion. So I suspect we're ready to roll.
All right. Good evening. My name is Stephen Victor from Victor Wetzel Associates. We've prepared the land development subdivision plan before you, and we have a PowerPoint. If RJ can bring that up, please. Just a few slides to give you and the audience some background on the proposed application. Next. The subject property is outlined in red in sort of the middle of the sheet. For the orientation that you will see, north is to the right here. And so running north-south at the bottom of the site is Perry Highway, Route 19. We are in the R2 zoning district, and all of the area around us on all four sides, including the opposite side of the highway, is all in the R2 zoning district, where single family is a permitted use. Next slide. This is an aerial photograph in which we've zoomed in a little bit closer. And again, the property is outlined in red. It's 15.8 acres in size. And all the area around us is zoned R2 single family, but not all the uses are. So starting to our north, that would be to the right on the slide, and then moving to the top of the slide, there's existing single family homes. And carrying around sort of the upper left corner, there's single family there, but on some larger lots. At the south end of our site, there is an electrical substation. Also running parallel to the south end of our site is a private street, a laneway that goes back to serve those larger single family houses, larger single family lots, and the substation, and that's known as Sarver Lane. Although we have frontage along Sarver Lane, it is a private street that we have no rights to. So we cannot use it for any means of access or circulation. Across the street, there's an office building, a self-storage, and the North Hills Lodge, a fraternal organization. Again, it's not commercial. I mean, it's commercial uses, but it's zoned R2. Next slide. The site itself, the 15.8 acre site, has a fair amount of topographic relief. At the right-hand side, the north end of the highway there, the elevation is 1160. And in our lower left or southeasterly corner, elevation 1060. So across our frontage, we have 100 feet of elevation change just along Perry Highway there. It's about 1/4 mile in length. The high point of the site is that top knoll in the center of the site at about 1172. So from our northeasterly corner up to there, it's only about a 12-foot rise. However, at the very northerly end of the site in the center, just at our property line, it's 1180 right there, a little knob as you continue to go to the right or to the north. Lower point in the south drops to 1110, and then there's a 40-foot high vertical wall you may be aware of. I suspect it's an old quarry by its look and appearance. So there's an old quarry there that drops down to that southeasterly corner there that's separated from the site itself. Next slide. The single family lots we would like to develop on the property are going to be sold to Infinity Homes. We've put together a couple of the slides for Infinity Homes. I think they're a well-known high-end custom builder in the North Hills and South Hills area of Pittsburgh. Next slide. Now, maybe I should point out while we're looking at those, all of the homes they do are custom. They don't do spec homes. So they'll have individual buyers who come in and they'll pick the lot, pick the house choice that they would like, and then build that particular house. Thank you. Next slide. The subdivision plan in some ways is very simple. There really is only one point of access into the site. It's off of Perry Highway, and it needs to be in that northeasterly corner, the upper right there, because of elevation. As we drop down to the southeasterly corner, we have that 100-foot of elevation difference in the highway, and therefore we must have our access located there if we're going to get an entrance in. That's where the original driveway was located, because on this property is a single family house. It's not being lived in, hasn't been for years, and it will be raised. The plan calls for building a cul-de-sac in which there would be 19 single-family lots along that. The street would be built to township specifications and dedicated to the township. Sidewalks on both sides of the street. Stormwater management would take place in that lower left corner, the southeasterly corner, the old quarry site, if you would. And that's where our stormwater management would be located. At the rear of lots 8, 9, 10, and 11, there was a old trail driveway, if you would, that was there for the single family house. And so we're going to utilize that same means of creating an access way from the right between lots 7 and 8 that then go across the back by easement of lots 8, 9, 10, and 11 to get down to the point where it meets with the detention access. Access to the detention facility will be off of Perry Highway. Again, it would be easier and cleaner if we could just pop in off of Sarver Lane, but we don't have rights, can't use it. So in that very bottom left-hand corner, you'll see the little driveway. I don't know if your cursor can go there and point to where we would be. And so from that point, go up about halfway through the yellow green area. That's the detention road access. That would be an asphalt trail or roadway that would be served to get to the detention facility. It would then continue on as the pedestrian trail that would then connect back up to the top, and that would be a gravel path that would be put in there, a 6-foot wide gravel path. Now, one of the reasons we're looking for putting in the trail and having that connectivity from lot 7, 8 down to Perry Highway is that the topography of the site is very steep along Perry Highway. It's not physically possible to construct a sidewalk along Perry Highway from our entrance down and pass through the detention area just because it's too steep. So as an alternative, and this was an idea that has been discussed previously on a prior application, that we would request a modification to not construct the sidewalk along Perry Highway, but in lieu of that, to then install the trail and the detention road access to be able to get down to that point. I think the discussion previously was that that point would give the town the possibility of having a further trail extension that could maybe get to Vestal Park, which is on the other side of the substation. All of the lots are in excess of the R2 zoning standard. They're wider, areas bigger because of the larger single-family lots that Infinity would like to build on this. Let's go to the next slide, and then maybe I'll pop back to this one. This shows the grading that would take place on the site. As I said before, our access is in that lower right corner. We would bring the street up. And just before we get to lot 1 on the right-hand side is at the sort of the crest of the hill there, where we would have our CBU, that's central box units for those who are fortunate enough to have mailboxes and not the federal mail delivery we have today. So it's a point at which there would be the communal mailbox facility, and there's a pull-off in that area and an ADA parking stall in that area. The street continues on, and as it continues on, you see how we have graded on the site to create the home pads for the individual houses. The McCandless ordinance has certain standards for separation from the property lines based upon the height of the cut or the fill operations. And so we have respected that where we could grade closer to the lot lines we have, for example, on the right-hand northerly side, where the slope is too high. Back on the westerly side, the top of the sheet, you'll see the grading is held back from there, and there is an area of vegetation that would be preserved because of that setback standard. We have shown that street trees would be planted along the area, and rather than taking I'll call it a more formal approach of putting trees 50 feet on center, we have shown that there would be a mixture of canopy trees of different species and varieties to be planted in the front yard area along the streetscape. So to give it a more informal, still requiring the builder to put in street trees, but create a more formal area for that. The yellow-green area in the southeast corner is where the detention facility is, and that would be a homeowners association parcel. There will be a homeowners association to own and maintain the detention facility, as well as there will be covenants for the home styles and design of the homes itself. Obviously, there is a certain amount of traffic and noise that occurs along Route 19. To sort of mitigate that, we are proposing, and again, if I had my cursor, I'd point to it, but I'm hoping that you can start there on Route 19 or Lot 19, the yellow-green highlighted area, drop down to the back. There you go, and just go to the left through those lots and follow that yellow-green area right there. Keep going, bends down, keeps going, and keeps going over to Lot 11. That's envisioned to be a continuous wall. And I maybe should use the term fence as opposed to wall. Oftentimes people think when you have a wall, it is retaining something. There'd be dirt on the high side, walk out. No. You can see from the detail in the lower right that the wall is not retaining any dirt at all. It is simply our efforts to do a sound wall. We did not want to put in a full interstate sound wall, but we felt that some visual and noise attenuation could be helped with a continuous wall. Choices of materials, we have shown here it to be of a masonry material, no more than 6 feet high. So it would follow the natural contours. So you don't have to do any grading or backfilling because it's not a retaining wall. And the wall just follows along continuously through that area to, again, provide a sense of privacy and a little more quiet to that area because of that The alternative to the masonry wall, masonry fence, I didn't even say wall, I should say fence, masonry fence, would be a more simple vinyl fence. To the extent of what you're aware of with sound attenuation, but a solid masonry wall will have a stronger ability to do that than the vinyl would. But if there is objection to the masonry, we're open to using a vinyl as well as an alternative fencing material. Again, I'm not here saying that we've got perfect sound attenuation. The wall definitely is not high enough to do that, but it will have some help and improvement to that. So that's what we're proposing to do. I don't know if it's ability to zoom in closer into any place on the wall.
Where would you like?
Anywhere along the wall, at like the rear of lot 16, anywhere. And zoom in as best you can to where that fencing is going to occur. And in front of it, on the downhill side, you'll see the dashed green area. We have put a 10-foot planting easement there. The purpose of the easement is to designate an area in which in front of the wall, there will be landscaping placed. One of the elements of the homeowners association is they will own the wall and they'll have access to the landscaping that will be in front of the wall. Therefore, because it's on individual lots, therefore the easement. Part of the review letter asked us to specify plants and sizes, et cetera, for that. This is plant material that's not required by the township. It's something that we're going to be doing. And when we come back for final plans, I'm sure we will have a lot more information regarding it. It is simply just here as a placeholder to say, this is our intention to plant within that area in the foreground of the wall to, I think, aid and help with the aesthetics of that wall in that place. So that was the intention of that.
Is it your intention that both sides of the wall would be the same?
Yes, yes. We have given a detail there, but the actual physical materials of what the masonry block would look like, we have not picked at this point. But we did, a cut sheet there just to so you can see what it could, how the construction would be, and how it would look, and it would have piers. I can't read the detail from here in the upper left there, but I think it's about every 30 feet on center would be wider block piers. And then it would have, the piers would have a cap on them. And again, the top maximum height is 6 feet. It's in that area.
And are you talking about cement block or more decorative sculptured rock looking block? Like Versa stone or whatever that stuff is.
Versalock.
Versalock.
It would not be Versalock because that really is a product that would be specifically intended for a retaining wall.
Right.
That's not meant to be freestanding. Here, the center core of it would be a standard block material, and it would have rebar in it and backfilled with concrete. If you're acquainted with the term, an Ivany block wall, basically an Ivany block wall is 8 by 16 by 8 concrete block that has the holes in it. You put rebar down it and you backfill it with concrete all the way up. So basically it makes it, just a solid concrete wall is what would be the intention. And that's what the detail is showing there. To the face of it, hasn't been decided yet. Again, if you come back to us and say, no, we really don't like this, it's not a fencing we'd like, then we would then just probably move right to the vinyl. And so we're open for comments and discussion as regards to what that is. Again, we're here for preliminary plans, not for the final. So.
Thank you.
One thing I would want to point out is that the sanitary sewers that come to this side of the road, remember if we go back one drawing, And again, it's difficult to see in this area, but approximately where our entrance is at Route 19, there is a sewer crossing at that location. If we tap into that manhole, we can then extend our sewers in such a way that we can serve almost all of the lots, but there's like 5 or 6 at the end of the cul-de-sac that can't be reached by a gravity sewer. And we have shown that they would be accessed by grinder pumps. Would like you to know that we are actively exploring trying to bore underneath Route 19 at a lower location so that we can get the gravity sewer. But that decision-making hasn't been completed yet as to whether that's going to be physically possible to be able to bore underneath 19, obviously a PennDOT permit, and then can build it up. We've laid it out. We know it works. It's now just a matter of can it physically be accommodated by easements and permitting. So, and if it can, that's what we would like to do in lieu of having the grinder pumps. But, and as soon as we know that, if it is going to be all gravity, we will be updating the plans accordingly. I'm hoping that can take place relatively soon. So, all the other utilities are obviously right. Well, not all of them. Water is up the road on Forest View, I believe is where it is. And so it'll be extended down the street along our side of Perry Highway, turn, come in the cul-de-sac and go to the end of the cul-de-sac. All the other utilities obviously will be underground, built along the street right away. There was a nice long letter. There's comments that Dan and I have gone through and talked today about. I don't think there's any disagreement on items that were requested, and we're happy to provide that additional information. I don't think there's any what I'll refer to as game changers within the information that has been requested. So if there are any questions that you may have, I'd be happy to answer.
Anyone in the commission have questions? Al?
I don't know,
Start on there.
I don't know if you'd be the person to answer this, but can you talk a little bit about the traffic study, or you would not be the person to answer those type of questions? For example, I know that they did a traffic study that did 7 to 9 in the morning, 4 to 6 in the afternoon as peak hours.
Yes.
But my question is, if you're sitting up there on Forest View or anywhere else at 2:30 to 4, when the high school lets out, there's a huge traffic congestion that occurs as you're coming off that hill. If you looked at those hours, would your traffic study be significantly different than it shows in this report?
No, it would not.
And
I would inform you that the scope and the time of the studies was not determined by us. It was determined by McCandless and by PennDOT. And if they felt, as the ones who set the standard by which we had to do our work study, not say had to do, I mean, we're happy to do it, but we did the study. That's called a scoping meeting. And from the very beginning, both PennDOT and McCandless were part of that scoping meeting. And it was established, those were the time periods in which there would be the peak traffic. So that's when it was studied.
the one question I have, the one issue I have is this ingress into the plan coming up from south to north on the other side of the highway. And then having to come, make the left-hand turn to come into another neighborhood, then through that neighborhood, then back onto 19 to have the access to get to the plant.
Okay, that's one of the ways. There are, right off the top of my head, I can think of 4 ways by which you can get to and from. I didn't bring any of those slides, that were discussed in detail when we were requesting a rezoning last year. Was
Yeah,
it
there was,
last year?
Al, we have a couple new members.
Yeah, I wasn't
And-
here, so,
and so-
if this is old ground, tell me.
If I was to generalize it, and I guess next time maybe I'll throw those slides in.
Might still have it.
It's-
if you want
there's-
me to go digging.
Well, I know,
There's-
I mean, you can go by,
I don't want you to leave thinking there was only one way to get through it. There are 4 ways to get to it. You can come from Wexford and you just come southbound and turn right in.
right, you'd have to go up, make it somewhere, turn around and come back.
No, I'm talking about coming from Wexford,
Oh, okay,
driving straight south, and you turn in.
yeah, I'm
I
talking
can go into anybody's
about.
neighborhood. Second option is I can go north on 19 and I can bear to the right, if you would, down near the drugstore, and we go up Old Perry Highway up to the fire station.
By St. Alexis.
No, not that far.
I don't
Yeah,
think-
that road comes out, doesn't that road come out on 19 at the top by the fire station?
Yes, that's what I'm talking
Yeah,
about.
yeah.
That's St. Alexis.
Not-
Thank
yeah.
you. We turn left on there and then come back down. And then obviously it's the same as Wexford. This
There's no
left turn's been taken away.
Yeah, there's
no left turn
up there.
Thank you. Can't do that one anymore.
Okay,
The other is you're going north and at the Pine Creek, you turn left at Pine Creek, go up to, neighbors are gonna tell me what street it is, go up to the single family neighborhood and get back. Don't tell me that you don't drive through a neighborhood to get to your house today.
I don't, that's okay.
You're on
I don't, but I just,
I mean, your house sits right on Route 19 then,
no, it's, the neighborhood's right off of Route 19. I
Yeah,
just drive,
okay.
make the turn.
but I would guess 99% of us do not live and access off a direct arterial street. They go through somebody's house in somebody's neighborhood.
It's
So-
that turn from 19 right at the top, if you.
Into
That's the one
Longview.
I'm concerned about, like the traffic from there. Because at 4 to 6, you got a lot of people driving that, and they're not driving 35 miles an hour.
No,
So that turn, that left turn seems to be a little bit questionable in my mind, but
I think unless McCandless is saying that our property is condemned, you really don't have many other choices. You, the town, have zoned the property for single-family development. You've denied a request to put townhouses, so it's obvious you really want single-family. We've put fewer single-family on the site than what you can have if we would have followed your zoning ordinance. We don't like it any better than you, the access that we have. We would love to not have a right in, right out. We'd love not to go through somebody else's neighborhood. But that is what this property is. And people will follow whatever reasonable path they want to follow to get here. And so I think we're just saying, it's not a good deal. We don't like it, but it is the best that we can get from the accesses that we have. And we're trying to work toward that, making it work.
and the trail, what the purpose of the trail to get down to Sarver Lane, is that so that someone can get down to the back of that property to 19?
So somebody can go from there south to Vestal Park. And RJ's gonna bring it up. So go to the neighborhood drawing. It's the third drawing in.
Third, okay.
One more.
I mean,
There
that
we go.
Sarver that's not a wide lane there. I mean, one car on there and you're,
We're not proposing anybody drive it. We can't drive
I
on it.
know, I'm just saying.
All we're saying is you
I'm
can,
not sure you want people walking down that, but that's,
I'm not asking anybody to walk down Sarver. That's what the town is gonna need to do is, or they'll we're bringing them to that southeasterly corner, if you can point to that. Right, nope, right there, stop your hand at the property line. We're gonna bring them a little bit in. Right there.
It's somewhere in there.
Yeah, we're gonna come right out there. People can step on there, out on the Route 19 right of way, cross over Sarver, and then you just get a easement through the substation, the electric folks, and they'll probably be happy to give you.
So they wouldn't be walking down Sarver Lane.
Oh, no.
Okay,
Vestal Park is to the left of the word substation. So
and what would be the pros and cons of you extending that trail directly to Vestal?
we don't own it.
Okay.
We don't own the substation. We can't trespass.
I can add a little bit of context here, because this is kind of one of those things that have been percolating for a
Okay.
while, coming back and forth, with, I think previously there was even a different property that had this before when we were talking, Steve. So I'm sure we'll get to the Prairie Highway sidewalk discussion at some point, during this meeting, but in general, it was my hope and interest that if we could at least get the groundwork to have some sort of pedestrian pathway, that the town could sort of do not that it's a mile, but I call it last mile connector, it's a colloquial term, to the park. At least we'd have an opportunity to hook in there, whereas if they do this development, and we don't get any sort of pedestrian access, well, game over, we'd be responsible for putting it in and connecting the whole thing. I do think that it would be better than not to have the opportunity. We haven't talked to anybody at the substation, because of course this is still pending in general, but it's not terribly uncommon for power companies to work with trail access easements. There's actually a lot of power lines and things like that share trail access. So I don't think it's a total moonshot, and it's better to have it there than not, especially if they're going to have this stormwater, retention pond access there for the vehicles anyway in the first chunk, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Come back.
Brendan?
Could you walk me through the stormwater, please?
Sure. Stormwater will be gathered along the cul-de-sac. One more. Here we go. Well, along the street at the normal 300-foot intervals. I can see on there where the inlets would be, and so we gather that up. And then we also would have a roof conductor system that would run along the rear area of the lots. Again, I can see it on my drawing, on the drawing up there. And all that would lead to the storm pipe at the end of the cul-de-sac. And then from there, it comes down over the hill. The storm detention basin is located there in the lower left corner. It's a dry bottom facility, so it's not holding water continuously. It does have infiltration capability, so we've done the infiltration testing. So it's a combination of infiltration and detention. And then coming out on a 45-degree angle out of the detention basin to that very southeasterly corner, it will tie into a large catch basin located there that PennDOT had previously installed to then carry it to join up with the stream.
In terms of the grading that would be undertaken, particularly on the western side of the proposed street.
Okay.
So I guess grading and any timbering that may occur, because there's neighborhoods, I guess, to the west and downslope from the proposed neighborhood plan we're looking at. Do you have any calculations or idea of runoff or increased runoff that may occur out to the west as a result of the construction of home sites, pads? I guess there's some level of trees, varying level of trees on different parts of the property. Do you know how that would work?
Sure. Basically, the cul-de-sac that's running, where it's running north-south, is basically running the ridge today. So that everything on the downhill side of the bottom of the sheet side from the cul-de-sac today is running toward Route 19 and just coming down the hill, running out onto 19, and is picked up along by the inlets there. On the back side, where the street runs there, it's running in a toward the top, that would be the westerly direction. And there is a drainage way, probably DEP stream classified drainage way in the back there that it all drains to today. We're going to gather the new stormwater runoff, and that water which would have gone that direction, intercept that by the street and also the rear yard interceptors. So we will significantly be reducing the volume of water that goes toward the west as well as to the east, and taking it and rerouting it down to the others. So there is a reduction in overall releases going to the west. So it's less than what it is today.
Hey, Steve, we had a plan exactly like that was built not too long ago.
Okay.
And we had issues related to some of the finished grading and so forth. So we'd have to be pretty careful to make sure that the builders push as much water to the street as you're describing. I don't disagree with what you're saying. We just had a bad experience in a development that we just kind of got fixed. And the only way we got it fixed at the end, we really didn't get it fixed totally. We ended up doing some reforesting of the area that was taken out for that. So I agree with Brendan. We have to be careful and maybe know about, we see some of your infiltration testing and see where the groundwater is in that area, because groundwater is a problem when you cut a slope like this. It can be, an issue for those people.
As we look through lots 1 through 7, then that's the area that he was referring to as
Right.
draining to the west. That's all filled. That's not cut.
Yes, it's Phil, exactly.
That's all filled. I think you said something about.
No, I'm sorry, I didn't meant to say, but it's exactly analogous to
Yeah.
the Montgomery plan, which we had all sorts of groundwater issues on that
Okay.
plan. So we just want to be careful of that. So I agree with in a lot, and in the spirit of things, they put these yard drains in the back, but then the builders grade the way they want to grade. And, it ended up happening that more water went in that direction in the finished grade. So again, just something to be aware of.
Okay.
Correct.
I'm sure we can get more detail with that on the
Yeah,
final
it's-
plans. Absolutely.
Any more, Brendan?
That's it for now. Thank you.
Jonathan?
I get to share everyone's on the commission's view of the access and the slopes. It seems to be that there's a lot of lots for the amount of slope that's on here, that there's a lot of slope in each lot for each house. The slope along Perry Highway to address maybe some of the traffic coming down the hill. There's no room to have an in-cut for an acceleration lane or a turning lane before that.
Can I
we
touch on
say,
that? Can I touch?
yeah,
on that?
sure.
While you're right there.
Yep.
In the traffic study, PennDOT came back and took out their solution for the decel lane, the turning lane, was to make the radius as large as possible, and we did. It's a very oversized. And as to the acceleration lane, that was nixed by PennDOT, and the explanation for that is that if I'm driving out of the plan and that I come to a 90-degree stop, I can easily turn my head and I can look up the hill. I can see if something's coming. If I was to come down, as you described, turn and get into an acceleration lane, now I have to rely upon me being accurate with a rear view mirror and then judging my acceleration speed to match the other acceleration speed. PennDOT's conclusion was sit at the stop, wait for a good clearing, then go and use the highway as your acceleration. Made a lot of sense to me, but I'm not a traffic engineer. So that's why you don't see those elements within the plan. And it's my understanding that has been reviewed and approved by the township's engineer as well, traffic engineer.
I wouldn't say we approved anything, Steve. Let's be careful about that.
Okay.
PennDOT, we opined on it. I mean, we're deferring to PennDOT for this because it is their road.
Okay.
We're concerned, as we say in our letter, I'll speak for Mike Haberman, who's our traffic engineer. But again, you know, PennDOT, at the end of the day, PennDOT rules in terms of access to their highway. So we would defer to them.
Thank you.
I guess part of the landscaping fence just east of lot 12 there, where residents can plant or take part in that, but it seems to be like there's like a sheer cliff right there. So if it's too steep to put a sidewalk, that would be too steep for anyone to access that portion. I don't really see any ways for them to get into that landscaping section as well, unless they walk all the way around.
Yeah. To that point, Dan and I had a discussion about this today, and in our discussion, we suggested the idea of maybe a break at each lot line, so as to give people access for whether it be maintenance or just the kid's paper airplane went over the wall and you can chase it down. You know, for whatever reason, it seemed to make a lot of sense. So that's still a work in progress relative to that. But I think you're observing what we felt was also a good thing to us. For maintenance purposes, we need to have access.
What's the thought with the CBU versus just individual mailboxes?
Federal government won't let us do it.
Okay.
It's mandate.
Good reason, I guess.
Yeah.
All new developments are that way now.
Yeah,
It's
isn't
been
that
that,
weird?
yeah,
There's no mail delivery to new developments.
the first one I did on that was in 2008, 9. And it was, well, we encourage it. Today, it's mandatory, and we have to go to the postmaster and they have to approve it. So we don't have a choice.
I didn't know that.
But I can see an apartment building or something like that
Yeah.
makes sense, but.
Every now and then, if you're sort of like in an existing development and you're, you know, just sort of a little push beyond it, they'll let some mailboxes slip through, but they're pretty heavy-handed about it.
Yeah, this happened with the Fastener plan too, where they had to have a group mailbox as well.
Yeah.
So,
We try to be very sensitive. I'll give you some examples of where we place these. The worst thing we could have done was to put it right in the middle of the plan, right in front of lot number 5. First of all, everybody stopping there would really upset lot number 5 and 15. You know, they find all this traffic out there in front of them. And secondly, that everybody who lives from 1 to 4 will drive to the CBU, then turn around at the cul-de-sac and then come back. And so we've just added that much more traffic within the plan. So to the best we can, we try to locate it at the entrance. We try to locate it at an area that was not going to be overly intrusive to the homeowner who's closest to it. So it's a very sensitive, and it can't be on a steep area because you have to also provide ADA parking. So it's a complicated issue. I like the old mailboxes.
Anything else? Sean?
I think we brought up stormwater. It looks like there's a few potentially capacity issues in the system, but that's, you know, I think something that can be worked out with a final plan based on those comments that the Gateway provided. Going back to the entrance, there's one of the comments that's regarding the site distance looking north coming out of the site, and that there would require some clearing. And are easements necessary for that, or is it all within the property extents where the clearing would happen?
You know, it's funny that you raised that particular point, although it was raised here. Because I called our traffic engineer and said, what is this? You know, I don't know of it. And he says, well, when they went out and did the original study on our site, it's wooded right there and there were trees in the way. So being the good engineers that they did, they meticulously marked, there are trees there. I can't see perfectly and we'll have to clear them. They didn't say was those trees were all on our property. But yes, they are. We don't need any easements. It's all on our property where our access driveway would need to be cleared. Yes.
My second question was about the delineation. Has the site been delineated?
Yes.
At all?
There is,
And have there been any wetlands or streams identified
there are no wetlands and there are no streams on the site.
within the property?
And there was a report. Did we fail to give you a copy of the report? If so, then we'll provide that to you.
Let me double check.
We try to submit those
I could
with our
assist.
application, but in this particular case, there weren't any on-site streams or wetlands.
Yeah, I see PCSM, but I don't have anything named.
Okay.
For outlining them.
Yeah, it would be done by Palustris Environmental. This is who this developer uses, so we'll get you a copy.
That was all I had. Thank you, Sean. Shelley?
So I have, some of my questions were answered, unless I missed it, but I don't know that anyone talked about the, I'm looking at C200, this open space area that surrounds the stormwater, the
Yes.
basin.
Yes,
Is that intended to be your required recreation area?
no,
Do you have one?
no. We will be paying
In lieu
a
of.
fee in lieu of for that.
Okay.
And I'll give you the, I'll call it the logical reason why. A development of this size just doesn't muster the need for that. And the reality is, most people today, they have kids, they keep the kids in the recreation on their own lot for a variety of social fear reasons, to be reality about it. And otherwise, the kids get old enough and they go into organized sports and they're off to soccer league or dance class or something, and they're doing those things. So a development of this size just has no need or desire for it. So we're happier to pay a fee in lieu of and let you folks spend the money.
And have a trail.
And we have the trail.
I was
We did
just
the
gonna
trail.
say, I mean, I don't think that it's gonna satisfy the whole entire area requirement. There is at least, it was like the Thompson Run development. Yeah,
We were wondering if we could get any credit for that.
yeah, I mean, like, let's do the math.
Okay.
It's better to have it than not, so I'm
Okay.
happy to do the math.
I doubt it, but just to ask, since, as our engineers indicated, that some of on your drawings or easements were undersized, they need to be revised, the sanitary and storm in particular.
No, all of the sanitary are 20 feet wide. All of the public storm sewers are 20 feet wide. The only place we had them 10 feet wide was in the rear yard areas where we have the roof collector systems. And my discussion with Dan today,
That's
that
sufficient.
I think that will be sufficient, Dan? And you
I'm
said,
not sure if we call it out in the stormwater ordinance specifically at 20 for that, but anything public would be 20, but
Yeah.
10, if it's private and HOA, 10 is fine.
now,
Okay, there was just no indication they were private on the plans, so.
yes, that's a good point. We should label them as 10-foot private easement, so, yeah.
Okay. I'm not trying, I don't want to get into a big debate about sidewalks, but just to, because it's a thing in McCandless, we like our sidewalks. Well, a lot of us do, I'll speak for myself. Did you actually, and this might have been part of the original submission, which, but did you actually price out, physically look at, I mean, did you eyeball it and say, this is just too darn steep and we're not going to even consider sidewalks, or did you actually look at what it would take to do it if it were even physically possible and at what cost?
The only way, we did look at it on site, looked at it. And it is, in order to construct it, you would have to create retaining walls to do that. And in sort of a twist of your ordinance, so you don't really allow retaining walls because you forced me to do a slope that's other, but I'm sure you would have given us modifications to do that, to get around your anti-retaining wall ordinance. But no, it's not physically possible without significant retaining walls to be able to get that in there. There are also.
It is physically possible. This would take some really big retaining walls.
Yes,
Because this has been studied before.
yeah,
That
So
issue
we're
has
talking like
been,
an excess of 6-foot retaining.
oh yeah,
walls.
they would definitely be in excess of six.
Giant.
Well, the problem is if you look at the plan, that the right of way goes back off of the road and probably gobbles up the first 5 feet off of the paved shoulder that
Yeah.
it's there. And then it goes steeply up from there. So if you put a 5-foot sidewalk beyond there, you're probably going to be at least 10 to 12 feet in the air with a big retaining wall all the way along that
Yeah.
edge.
Okay. I just wanted the magnitude
Yeah.
of the hardship.
huge.
Yeah, that's the large
Huge.
hardship.
Huge hardship.
That would require.
Okay, so you answered the question, you do not need adjacent properties for the clearing and grading you described. And that is calculated to, which seems to get you to that potential 925-foot site distance in the traffic study.
Whatever it is, the
No,
response I
that was-
got, I don't know what the dimension
potential,
is,
which
but
I didn't with enough clearance.
Yeah.
The only thing I'm gonna say about you've been through this before, so you know that there's access concerns from everybody on this property, but you're also correct in that you can't be denied access to your property. But I do have a question about it. You talked about kind of at length about the acceleration lane, but when I looked at the traffic study, and in particular, it was written it down. It was figure 10. The traffic engineer's calculations on figure 10, which use 45-mile-per-hour speed limits, and that based upon that chart, it actually came pretty close to warranting a decel lane.
okay,
So then if you look at the actual traffic study data, which was taken during peak times, I'm not going to split hairs here, but let's just say lots of people are driving 50 miles per hour or even in excess. So I guess I'm asking, as our engineer said, the town hasn't approved anything, would you even consider perhaps talking further with PennDOT about a decel lane? And I kind of bring that up. I'm very familiar with the area and thinking about the old development was going to be a private street. This you're proposing to dedicate to the town. I'm thinking about our snow plows. I'm thinking about a snow plow having to come to almost a complete stop, doesn't matter how wide your entrance is, and turn into that. I'm thinking of school buses that are, I don't know where they're going to stop. Are they going to go into the plan, turn around? Are they going to
they will not do it.
but then they're going to be stopping on 19. So I'm just bringing this up as I understand that you need to work under the rules and regs of PennDOT, but I think that at least a decel lane for safety purposes would still be worth discussing. So I guess that's a comment.
We'll be happy to bring that back to our traffic engineer and have them ask as it relates to school buses. School buses, is my understanding by law, cannot pull off on the side of the road, cannot use a decel lane. They are obligated to stop in the lane of traffic, put out their stop sign, put the flashing lights on, and everybody else must obey. So unless North Allegheny is going to take the school buses up in and go through our cul-de-sac, which they traditionally have not done, there will be school buses stopping on Route 19, flashing away. So by
I
law.
still think for a lot of other, we'll take school buses out of it. And I
Okay.
think for snow plows.
Yeah,
and for
your other
trucks
comments,
and
your other comments
deliveries,
are good.
that it would be, it would be safer.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think this was actually already raised, just making sure that, I think that in the GeoTech report that And I think actually in some of the appendices, there were areas that were subject to landslides based on elevations, because I think anything below 1120, an elevation of 1120 is prone to landslides, and you do have quite a bit of that on the property. So I was kind of thinking about that and a concern about the slopes, and I think you probably owe our engineer more information on that topic based on this letter, but it kind of got me thinking about the fact that this site is pretty well, there's a lot of forestation on this site today. Obviously, a significant portion of that, I assume, has to go based on
Yes.
on this plan, but do you have a plan, a thought, a goal to maintain existing trees at all? And especially, you know, as they do provide good erosion control on the slopes?
In the area where we're creating new slopes, we traditionally have used, we haven't proposed it in the landscaping plan, but revegetation or slope reforestation. That might be an area that we could work toward. Otherwise, where there is grading, there will not be any trees remaining. So when we look at that drawing right there, you can see I can see it, but because I know what I'm looking for, but more in that upper left corner where you can see those are existing trees there by the curls, and then along the western property line where we're required to hold back the grading, there are trees in that location. So
Trees that you can keep?
yes, yes.
That really was my
That's-
question.
Yes,
Are you attempting to keep as many trees as possible?
yes.
So I think that the point was already raised, and I'll just state that I think we all agree stormwater is a big issue in McCandless.
Mhm.
This property is going to create a significantly larger impervious area than exists today. And it's just paramount that there's already, and I'm sure you're well aware, that the terrible flooding that goes on down elevation along Pine Creek,
Yes,
which is quite close to this property, and that it's just of paramount importance that that you put a lot of effort into a really strong, comprehensive working plan for that.
okay.
It was something I read, this is just out of curiosity. Are these homes solely slab on grade, or will they have basements?
They'll have basements.
They will have basements.
Yeah, a large custom home like this will have basements. They do make, in some of their patio homes, in other developments, they might have slab on grade, but not these. These will not.
Just again, curiosity, what kind of price point do you think that?
750 to $1 million.
I just heard Miranda sold their first house ever for $1 million in Fassinger Farms.
Passenger farms. Wow, it's a good time for residential real estate. That's all I have. Thank you.
Yes.
Greg, do we have questions from you?
No, I think I've heard a lot of good information.
The only comment I have is I drove just day before yesterday, coming from the north, and did what, as if I were coming from the south, but I wasn't.
Yes.
And I took the turn into Longview, then you go back to Hillcrest, then you come around Hillcrest, and then you come back out on Forest View to get back out into 19, which is what anybody coming north on 19 would have to do.
Absolutely.
Okay. And as you're heading north on 19 and you're making that left, isn't that more than a 90? Don't you have to kind of a slight U-ing, if you will, before you turn into Longview? I think that median comes up far enough that you can't make a pure left-hand turn off of 19 into Longview.
Yeah.
Am I correct in that? I'm not
It's been
correct.
so long since
I'm
I've
seeing
done
some nodding heads back there.
Yeah.
I'm wrong.
You can turn that.
You can make a direct left turn.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do your turns, then they should.
Yeah, some people do U-turns at that location, but it's illegal.
To continue south. Yeah, but not to turn into Longview.
Correct.
Okay. Well, anyway, beside the point, I was coming from the north and I turned right into Longview. I went to the back and I turned left on Hillcrest and I took a left again on Forest View to come back out to 19.
Yes.
And I have to admit, I pulled out without probably enough time for the car that was coming down the hill behind me. And
He honked at you.
no, it wasn't that close. It wasn't that close. But when I pulled out, it was like one of those, oh, you know what moments, like
Yes.
I better get moving. And I just bring that up because if that's what a number of people are going to be doing, either there needs to be, and maybe I was not careful enough, I'll be the first to admit that, but I pulled out and boy, there was a car on my rear end before I knew it.
We don't,
Clearly going faster than the speed limit.
Yeah.
But that meant that I had to gun it to get moving.
Then you have to slam on your brakes to turn right into your neighborhood too.
Well, that would be true.
Like 500 miles.
it is, you know, can I ask the neighbor something? Because you,
Sure.
if you were to choose Longview
Just measure.
instead of Forest View, you could leave out Longview, couldn't you? Don't you have sight distance out of Longview?
No.
We feel like there's less.
use either actually, because it's that dangerous.
Yeah, but if you had your druthers, if you're going to our plans and you had your druthers, would you choose Longview or Forest View?
It's Longview the northernmost.
Northernmost.
I would use Forest View. Longview's a very short sight distance. I live in Longview.
Worse than Forest View.
Yes,
Okay, I'm just curious.
but neither are acceptable, I will say, to use on a daily basis.
I will, just for context, add way back when you guys did the scoping meeting with PennDOT originally, you were going for a U-turn originally there, is that correct? Or at least,
We
feeling out.
suggested it, yes.
and PennDOT came back and they said the speeds, with the speed study, was part of the traffic study, was too high for the U-turn. But they okayed going through Forest View and Longview. Now, I expressed no opinion on that, but I just communicate that PennDOT's aware and they didn't say no to that one.
Steve, I know off-site improvements aren't required. I also drove the loop tonight, got a view of the deficiency to looking to the left at Forest View. I realize the developer can't go on private property and move or improve the site distance. But if we were able to work with the neighbors, would the developer be willing to make that improvement? Do you think?
Yes. Yes,
Just a
so, and that problem is there whether we're here or not.
I agree.
And
I agree.
so if you could put a little skin in the game to help us be able to do that, we could then go in and do something on that. Because as Dan said, we can't trespass.
Sure.
We can't do some certain things, but I think it would be mutually beneficial for all the neighborhood, not just this plan, if we can do something, because it's not a good thing right now. We understand that.
Thank you. Kim, I didn't mean to pass over you. Do you have questions?
I did have a question actually, and I was trying to figure out what the position of the wall that was going to be separate for the sound wall, and it looks like it's at what? Why don't you just tell me? Then I don't have to figure it out. But what is the height of what level is the sound wall compared to the level that the houses are going to be? Looks like the houses are going to be significantly higher than that sound wall.
On the side where you have lot 19 back to lot 14,
Yes.
and maybe I shouldn't use 14, I'll go 19 to 15. Those are flat lots. Otherwise, there's not a walkout basement. And the wall is sitting at maybe 1 foot lower than the elevation, the first floor of the house. So certainly a 2-story house with tall roofs on it we're not blocking the visibility of it. We're just trying to say that a straight line shot from 19 to that point on the hill will help with some sound attenuation for, but now, again, it's not going to be perfect by any means. Sound can go a variety of ways. It can bounce off low clouds, rain events. There's a whole bunch of things what sound can do, but if you can stop the straight line projection of sound, and the majority of the sound off the highway comes from the tires. It's not the motor. It's the noise of the tires hitting the pavement. So if you can block a straight line shot, visual shot from the tire up to where the rear yard is, people's patios, etc., this will have some effect for that.
And at 14 and 15, I was looking at this, looks like about a 10-foot difference. Am I reading this incorrectly?
At 15, it's flat. That's still a walk. That's still a flat lot. 14 is transitioning. So the left side of 14 is a walkout basement. So there it is much more difficult. The expectation is that if it's a walkout basement, it will have a patio or some outdoor activity at that lower level, and this will fencing material will have some effect. So it's not perfect, but it's the start of something.
All right, that's the only question that I had. Thank you.
All right, I think we've been through the cast, and unless somebody has come up with an additional question since we've spoken.
I do. Okay, this is crazy, but I just have to ask it. So, I mean, the same with the townhome plan. This is the entrance location. It's the existing driveway, right?
And it's approximately there, yes. Yes.
So was there no way to even, I understand that Sarver Road is private, so that's off limits to you, but are the grades just, there's no way to work through the grades and actually have an entrance that's where the detention access road is proposed?
It's too steep.
Even with a, I mean, I just wonder if you looked at it simply because that's a lot safer place to enter and exit down where Sarver Lane is than up here in the middle of the hill.
Let me make a note on that, and when we come back, because I anticipate we'll be coming back, let me tell you what that grade would work out to be if we were to
it's not gonna be a
construct.
straight up thing.
Well, it's pretty much got to be straight up, because you can't do a switchback type road system and meet your township specifications for vertical curves.
Or horizontal curves, yeah. Or horizontal.
Yeah,
Horizontal,
too-
thank you,
that's too long
horizontal.
for me,
Horizontal, yeah.
Yeah, the horizontal curves wouldn't let me do.
I mean, I think about right across the street here from Town Hall, what's that called?
This curve right here, I checked it because I was worried it was too narrow, but the minimum in Allegheny County is 125-foot radius on center line.
Right.
And this one's 150, so it's a little bit more.
Mhm.
So that's about as sharp a curve as you can make to transition.
I think you all took a crack at trying to get up the hill in a different way back when, like, before I was even here, right?
Yes,
Yeah, well, I don't know if you were on the project at that point. but-
it might have been somebody else's project, but if you're gonna refer to Parkwood over here,
Yeah,
yeah, I did Parkwood a gazillion years ago. But the access road going up is at 12%, but you can't just come off of the Reineman here and go at 12%. You have to have a vertical curve to get to it, and then you go up. And if you're saying, well, they did it over here, do it over there, it's different.
well, I thought it was worth asking because when we talk about safety and access, that, in my opinion, that would be a lot safer location for an entrance.
Yeah, that's up to you. I mean, we're not taking any official action for years.
Since we do have some of the public here who are probably here on this issue, are there any comments to be made? And if so, please come forward, state your name.
Just make a brief comment.
Well, the gentleman in the back is coming.
You'll teach me how to do it. Brian Wright, I live at 10061 Oak Ridge Drive, which is one of the.
You're too quick for me. I gotta write it
That's all
down.
right.
Brian Wright, 100.
61. Oak Ridge, which is the neighborhood behind.
Yep.
So, and I understand that, R2 is how this is rezoned, and obviously we can't prevent, houses going in under the existing zoning. But I would just ask, given all the safety concerns that were voiced tonight, as well as, the prior, when the rezoning request was made back last year, that council, kind of take a strict approach in terms of whatever the current guidelines and parameters are in terms of development. In other words, not necessarily allowing a lot of variances to make this potentially any easier, again, given the safety concerns that have been voiced, not only tonight, but back in last year's meeting as well.
I can share just a little bit of information. I mean, this is a preliminary plan, which is kind of, we don't frequently see things that aren't combined preliminary final. It's kind of just a technical, jargon that essentially means they have to come back with more stormwater and grading information for a final approval before this would be built. But that said, at this time, with the information that we've got, the only modification that's being requested is to waive the Perry Highway sidewalk in lieu of that access trail. So, we've got the full grading and everything TBD.
Sure.
But right now, they're not requesting any
Sure.
variances or modifications.
And the other point I would make, I'm not sure whether something additional happened since the last meeting, but the issue came up about the traffic study. And I know at the meeting last year, someone brought up the point, I can't remember which council member did, but there was a concern that the traffic study was done during COVID. And whatever council member brought it up, actually went back and looked at the North Allegheny calendar and found that, during this traffic study, one day there was no in-person school whatsoever. And on the second day of the traffic study, it was a hybrid day. So it was, potentially greatly underestimated in terms of the overall traffic. So again, I don't know if this has been redone since then or not, but I know that didn't come up tonight, so I just wanted to raise that.
There's been an update, I believe, we got one from January, but in general, if I recall correctly, this is a speed study primarily. So that's what PennDOT called for. So what they were doing was essentially, how fast are people really coming down the hill? And part of that is the U-turn okay versus, cutting into the neighborhood. A development of this size doesn't typically warrant like a full traffic impact study, which is when you do all the car counts and things like that.
Okay.
Something with 19 lots doesn't really trigger PennDOT's threshold. But that said, if I remember, I think Haberman might have actually told me that speeds have been up during the pandemic compared to how they were measuring people driving. So,
Yeah. No, the concern that
point well
wasn't.
taken about the pandemic, the traffic volume,
Right.
but I don't think that was part of
Okay.
the PennDOT scope.
Okay.
Steve, do you have any comments back from PennDOT yet? I meant to ask that before.
I don't know.
Okay.
I thought we had it, but I can't guarantee it. I can check with you.
Okay.
I just do want to, for the record, since Mr. Wright raised the question. There was, yes, this was more of a speed study, but everything was based on, the speed study was based on March 1st of 2021, and the counts were February of 2021. So I think that's a good point, that was during the pandemic. And I don't know if we can require update. I don't know if it's changed, if anyone has opinions.
In terms of like traffic counts, PennDOT has correction factors for COVID that Mike would have put in his letter if he thought it was germane to this. But as RJ said, the counts aren't really significant. It's the speed.
Well, I agree, but the speed was also, well.
Yeah. I mean,
Well, some of these
Yeah,
speeds
right,
here,
and
like
I see
they're
what you're
pulling.
saying.
yeah, I mean, a crow's gonna still go, there's not as many of them, but they're gonna still go as fast. They were going faster during the pandemic. I know that.
could be.
They got taken out of the parkway plenty of times.
And some of these speeds are like,
Yeah.
well, we all know,
Yeah.
because we see it, but.
You can roll down that hill faster than the speed limit practically.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
Don't have to accelerate.
No.
But it's a good question to ask, because I mean, these are
Yeah.
not really things that are particularly well discussed. you
Agreed.
know, When this stuff comes up, so.
We'll check on it.
Yes, sir, to the gentleman in the back.
I know your name.
My name is Jeff Jeserk, and the last name is spelled Jez, Zebra ERC, and I live at 10090 Oak Ridge Drive. My comments or questions relate to a few things. I'm concerned about the retention pond and its effect on Sarver Lane and those properties and whether they're well. I heard some of this kind of discussed with the Minert farm development, and I think they would be similarly impacted by suddenly a lot of water potentially collecting near their properties. I also am interested in the duration of the project and how council manages it, if they're able to at all, as problems arise, because you mentioned the Montgomery development. And I just think this is such a complicated site with so many things going on. And I would hope that McCandless would be able to have more access with the developer to ensure safety for the residents, not just us in the neighborhood nearby, but the residents themselves, the school kids who are going to use buses that stop here in the middle of the road. Like, I think the schools should somehow be consulted for how this would work, and we say, oh, we like that, or no, we don't like that. I don't know. But I don't know if those things happen when developments are built. I'm not a developer.
Township sends the plans to the school district, don't you?
No, not typically, no. But no, that's not in the distribution list. No, we send it to MTSA, we send it to the county. But the school district doesn't typically get a copy. They usually get the counts annually for, how many kids they're gonna have to pick up with stuff that's pending. But that said, with this particular access to Perry Highway and everything, I mean, we, as Dan mentioned, we kind of have to defer to PennDOT. They really have control over how things work on there.
Do we
Yeah,
feel we have good
but the town does have control over the development. Every
Oh,
development
yes.
has a development agreement that binds the developer to building the plans in accordance with what's going, and there's financial security posted to guarantee it. There's insurance provided if there's drainage issues or other things that have gone on. So the financial security is really the hammer. The developer doesn't get his money back that he posts until everything's complete, been tested, everything's up and running, and
I just also hope that PennDOT would,
PennDOT requires a bond.
well, but PennDOT's heard about us being a challenging area before, and I hope they would evaluate every change in this and weigh it out and make sure that they're doing the necessary improvements, stoplights, signage, expansions, I don't know,
Yeah.
to, again, make sure that it's done safely. And that's all I have to say. Thank you. Thank you for all your time and efforts, all of you.
Any other comments? Greg, did you have a question? Greg Wilkowskis?
No, I don't have a question.
Sorry, I couldn't tell if that was just your hand being there or a hand up.
So that almost looked like you were raising your hand. That's all. We couldn't.
I'm raising my hand, but not for question.
Okay.
I have an additional question that popped into my mind on the Perry Highway issue. In the traffic investigation, how much was taken into effect that the right lane there becomes right lane only becoming McKnight Road versus the left lane being Perry Highway and people crossing between them and or being distracted to get in the proper lane as they come downhill, associated with that big sign, which I think was near the proposed townhouse driveway in the prior iteration. Like, was that considered, or I don't know how you measure distraction, but rifling down that hill, and I'm in the left lane because I wanted to pass people on the flats and get over to the right lane, and then people are pulling out. Like, Is there a way to quantify that? Has that been quantified?
That's a good question. I'm writing it down and I'll ask our traffic engineer.
And I guess just to add on to that, if you're pulling out of there and making a left to stay on 19 as opposed, crossing lanes too, I mean, right, so.
Probably the study scope was really focused on, do you need an acceleration or, a decel? But it's a good question. Human behavior is often not accounted for by math, so.
I'll get an answer for you.
Thank you.
Is that it then? It sounds like it is.
Mike, Steve, particularly on that Forest View issue, I think Mike asked for site distance looking to the left. The Forest View.
Yes, Forest View.
So Worcester will take a look at that and maybe come back with an exhibit that would show what needs to be done to improve that site distance at Forest View. I think that would be important to see. Yeah.
Did we have anyone on the Zoom who wanted to make a public comment from home? I'm gonna give it a moment where you can type in the chat if you would like us to bring you on.
Nothing? Okay. Well, I don't think we have enough to really take any action at this point, so what's the official, we're tabling it, or what?
Yeah.
We'll table this until the next meeting when you'll have additional information and additional questions answered.
Okay. And you've given me some questions and we'll respond to those. If I get them in advance of the meeting, I'll pass them back to RJ and she can distribute them out to you.
Thank you.
Okay.
If you are doing any major revisions that need to get a new review letter, 18 to due date. March 18.
Thank you. We will want to do a response letter.
Yes.
So prior to the 18th is when we will make that submittal then.
Okay.
Thank you for the presentation.
Thank you. See you next month.
All righty. The next item on the agenda is item number 2, the approval of the February 1, 2022 minutes. Who seconded? Al seconded. Shelley moved it. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It carries. Motion carries. Minutes are approved. And the last item is general public comment. So I don't think we've got any in-house here, but maybe is there anybody online with any general public comment?
Did not have anybody signed up. There's only one person left.
Okay. Then we're ready for adjournment. Who wants to make the motion to adjourn?
I will.
Al,
Motion to
motion to adjourn? Second. Second from Sean. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. That's it. Thank you.
Good night, everyone.
Night.